Griffin,
Here.
Hairston, Johnson,
Here.
Bashir Jones, Joe Jones,
Here.
Casey,
Present.
McCormick,
Present.
Mooney,
Here.
Polincic, Santana,
Present.
Slight,
Present.
Zone.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This committee of the whole is being held during the COVID-19 emergency declaration in accordance with Ohio's open meeting laws as amended by Sub-House Bill 197. This meeting is held using the Zoom platform and is being live streamed on YouTube and Cleveland's Channel 20. It can also be seen on the Cleveland City Council webpage from Council's Facebook page. In accordance with Ohio's open meetings regulation as amended by Sub-House Bill 197, notice of this hearing was publicly posted. Should have that memorized by now. Okay, so we, as normal, we're going to take our legislation by department in order the lightest load to the heaviest, and then we'll do our council pieces at the end. So I'm going to be going with human resources, public health, public safety, and then we're going to move to economic development and finance. We'll round out the day, and then our council pieces. So I see Director West is with us. So I'm going to begin with ordinance number 75620. Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Human Resources to employ one or more consultants or firms of consultants to provide professional services necessary to analyze healthcare providers' benefits claims and evaluate proposals received for benefit management services for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director of Human Resources. Director?
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, council members and everyone else. Thank you. This is Human Resources request to employ what we call a benefit consultant. We've had this contract in place for numerous years. Our current vendor is the Fidelity Group. They have a contract in place through November 30th of 2020. We're going to go through a competitive vendor selection and recruitment process. The RFP will be posted. We will evaluate and score those vendors and then provide a recommendation to the consultant review committee and go through all of our normal internal procurement processes on this contract.
Thank you. And Fidelity has had this, the Fidelity Group has had this for, I think, as long as I can recall.
They have had this, when we shifted to the benefit consultant, yes, through the competitive process, they did award this. We were in a broker arrangement prior to that where Fidelity had it, but yes, through the competitive process, Fidelity has secured the contract for at least the past 3 cycles.
Okay, so this is not the broker model that we're looking to do. Can you just give me the 30-second overview of the difference?
Sure. So a consultant provides more of, as you can hear from the name, the consulting work. So they help us with any internal RFPs that we have to do. They help us with plan administration. They provide assistance when we're going through contract negotiations. A broker is someone that is employed more so by the healthcare providers versus the health plan administrator. So when Fidelity was a broker, they were actually paid by the employees, by the medical mutuals and the anthems. That's a more of a broker relationship versus the consultant relationship where they're working directly for the city of Cleveland versus the vendors that we are servicing.
Perfect, thank you. Questions, comments on ordinance number 75620? Hearing none, seeing no hands, ordinance number 75620 stands approved. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
And I'm just for our colleagues, if for some reason the raised hand function isn't working, please text me, but the raised hand is easier to manage. It's just a little easier for me to get to, but text if it's not showing up. We're going to move to public health now, which is ordinance number 73020. Council members Griffin and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Health to enter into one or more contracts without competitive bidding with the Center for Disease Detection, LLC, for the purchase of lab services for reproductive health clinics that are needed under the Title 10 grant for the Division of Health Department of Public Health for a period of approximately 6 months. Is Acting Director Kimball with us?
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Director.
Good morning, Council President, Council members, and everyone else. Cleveland Department of Public Health is seeking to enter into one or more contracts without a competitive bidding with the Center for Disease Detection, LLC, for the purchase of lab services for reproduction health clinics that are needed for our Title X grant. This would allow us to expand our lab services and increase our patient volume and provide care to the more vulnerable population. I have with me today our director of the director of health for our health clinics, Ms. Jeannie Brooks, who can answer any specific questions around this piece of legislation.
Thank you. Ms. Brooks, do you have anything further that Director Kimball didn't provide? Unmute, please.
I think he covered everything that that was relevant. I mean, the reason why we're doing this is because the Ohio Department of Health, they pulled back on some of the current STI testing for chlamydia and gonorrhea. So in order, they have a certain criteria for that test. So in order to offer that to everyone, we have to enter into an agreement with CDD so we can continue to provide those services.
Thank you. Why, the only thing that really stood out to me on this one is why the short nature of the engagement. 6 months is probably one of the, I don't recall very many like less than 1 year contracts. Why is it such a short engagement?
Because we have another contract with CDD for our HPV, EMV, and PAP testing. So that expires on March 31st. So when we renew, we're going to put all of the services together because they're all under CDD. So we'll have one contract for both services.
Got it. Thank you. At this time, I would like to recognize the chair of the Health Committee, Councilman Blaine Griffin. Comments, questions at 7:30:20.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've went through this with the Health Department. I fully support this. It's definitely a need that we have. So I'm in support of this. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Further questions, comments on ordinance number 7:30:20? Hearing none, seeing no hands, ordinance number 7:30:20 stands approved. Moving out of public safety. Ordinance number 758:20, Councilmember Zoning Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Safety to renew lease agreement number LS 2018-24 with Cuyahoga County for the lease of certain space located on various floors of the Justice Center for a term of 1 year beginning October 2nd, 2020. Director.
Good morning. Thank you, Council President, to members. Ordinance 758-2020, if passed by council, would authorize me, the Safety Director, to renew the lease agreement with the Cuyahoga County, the contract as stated by Council President, number LS 2018-24, with Cuyahoga County to provide for the lease of certain space located in the various floors of the current police division headquarters at 1300 Ontario Street, and to amend the contract to change certain terms of the lease contract. This is the second of 3 one-year options to renew the lease. The city would like to exercise this second renewal option for the lease. As such, the city and Cuyahoga County have agreed to make changes to the agreement concerning rent of the leased premises. Under this agreement, the rent will increase from $12 per square foot to $14 per square foot. The square foot is being reduced from $140,478. I'm sorry, 140,478.25 square feet to 131,790.75 square feet. This increase will be approximately $263,581.50 for the new year of the lease, commencing October 2nd, 2020, ending October 1st, 2021. All of the terms and conditions of the lease would remain the same.
Except for the price per square foot.
Except for the price per square foot, yes, that's correct.
Not a small one. Director, if I can ask, I'm reading the text of the legislation, and I heard you say that this was an option. It says, are we renewing the lease? Are we entering a new lease term, or is this an option of the existing lease?
It's an option of renewing the existing lease with those changes.
Okay. And can you give us the high level view of where we are with our moving out of the Justice Center? Where are we with for the police headquarters and all?
There was a meeting last week about the floor plan and discussion about what needs the Cleveland Police Department has out of the new police headquarters, and that's being worked out. We want to make sure that the new police headquarters has a 21st century operability for what we need it to do and flexibility to make adjustments as we go forward. So it'll be a long-term use.
So we're looking at it's going to be a few years that we're in the Justice Center still.
Yes, I believe that right now it's very early stages. If we were to break ground, it'll probably be around 2022.
Okay.
Somewhere around that time, late in a couple of years.
Thank you, Director. Chief Williams, do you want to add anything?
Mr. Chair and the committee, the director is right. We have probably 2 or 3 more years at minimum to lease space in the current Justice Center. We've just started the process of vetting and really whittling down to what that new police headquarters building is going to look like, what the square footage is, and things like cost. But we are probably going to be here at least another 2.5, 3 years at minimum.
Great, thank you. And at this point, I'd like to ask the Chair of Public Safety, Councilman Matt Zone, if he has questions, comments on ordinance number 75820.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of comments. I want to remind this council that when we originally entered into this agreement, we did that on the assumption that we needed to move out because we were going to be looking for a new home for the police headquarters, and it was originally going to be the 55 Public Square building. Council had many concerns, and we walked away from that proposal. Quickly, then it pivoted to the 1800 Superior Avenue site, the former Plain Dealer building, when that deal fell through. So we're in a contractual relationship with the county on leasing of this space. Now that we've settled sites on the new location, as the director and the chief alluded to, it's probably going to be 22 at the very earliest before that police headquarters is operational, maybe as late as 23. Although the price of the square footage goes up, it's in a prime location. It's an essential facility that is needed by the police operations, and I'd ask my colleagues to support this piece of legislation.
Great, thank you very much. The effective real estate is in Ward 3. I wanted to see if Councilman McCormick has any thoughts on this particular lease extension option renewal. Councilman?
Thank you, Chairman President. I just support what Councilman Zone just said. I support this legislation and as a transitionary piece until the new headquarters can be built. So just support what Councilman Zone just said as the chair of the committee, and I support this legislation.
Great, thank you. Councilman Anthony Brancatelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we supported this the construction legislation, the idea was to come back to council and give a presentation once we're further along in footprinting and siding and design. So I think it would be relevant for us to have an update meeting at some point as they're moving forward on this.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, could I just on this point?
If you'll allow Councilman Brancatelli, Councilman Zone.
No, great question, Councilman Brancatelli. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The project group is City Council's project rep on this. I've received some communications. We plan to hopefully soon, probably particularly in your committee, doing a briefing on the status of the new police headquarters and where that's going. Probably still a couple months away from that, but we plan on doing that relatively soon.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. If there are no further questions, comments, ordinance number 75820 stands approved. Please note a no vote for Councilman Bashir Jones on this particular ordinance. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chief. you. Keep on top of stuff here. Okay, moving to economic development. Is Director Ebersol with us?
Yep, I'm here. Give me 1 second to.
There we go.
Hello.
Hello,
All
how
right.
you doing? All right, Director, we have 4 ordinances under consideration. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Very good. All right, I'm going to begin with ordinance number 73720. Ordinance number 73720, Councilors McCormick, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Economic Development to enter into a tax increments finance agreement with 75 Public Square, Ohio, LLC, or its designee to support debt service related to the project and assist with the development of new market rate apartments, a restaurant, retail space, and to provide for payments to Cleveland Metropolitan School District and to declare certain improvements to real property to be a public purpose. Director.
Great. Thank you. So this is the second ordinance pertaining to this project. It will authorize a non-school TIF for the redevelopment of 75 Public Square. The Millennia Companies is leading the redevelopment of this building to 114 apartments, plus about 4,000 square feet of retail space. Overall project is roughly $42 million. And this is, so this, and then as I mentioned, this is the second piece. This is a non-school TIF portion for the project. Project to create 13 jobs in addition to the housing units. And, you know, it's a very prominent building on our public square. And so, you know, it's really great that we're reactivating this building and that we're moving forward with this historic renovation.
Great, thank you. And has the developer of this property, are they going to be signing community benefits agreements? Are they using our local hiring preferences?
Yeah, all of our regular pieces and parts still apply. You know, in addition to our Chapter 187 requirements, we also have our Fannie Lewis law, and again, it's our position, and nobody has challenged us yet that you know, despite the litigation on that pertaining to public improvements, that still applies for development incentives as law in the city of Cleveland, and we're applying it that way as well. So.
Thank you. What about prevailing wage?
I think this is a prevailing wage project. It's a historic renovation, so it's going to be pretty high cost, and so we'll have that. We have that piece in there also.
Say that last sentence again. I lost your last sentence.
That's in there also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would like now to turn to the Chair of Development Planning and Sustainability, Councilman Tony Brancatelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was thoroughly reviewed in the DPS committee, a wonderful historic preservation project and important element at Public Square. So ask for full support.
Thank you. And this project will take place in Ward 3. I would like to hear from Councilman Kerry McCormick on ordinance number 720.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the committee hearing this morning. This is one of the significant historic buildings on Public Square that is being historically revitalized. As was mentioned, with the housing and commercial aspects to it, this is an important piece on Public Square, and I'm very excited that we have folks investing in it. It's quite frankly been underutilized for quite a while in such a prominent part of our city. So support this legislation. Restoring these buildings to the historic character is very tough and expensive. So support this legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, to the director, I believe today we have 4 pieces of legislation that are coming before us asking for a TIF. Can you tell me, or would you happen to know how much the city and the county is surrendering with this TIF over the 30 years. And on all four of the projects today, I mean, that's prime real estate downtown. And I was just wondering how much, if there was not a TIF, how much in property taxes would be assessed to that property?
Yeah, if you give me 1 second, I can pull that up. You know, so this is a residential renovation. So the project has, in addition to the TIF, it qualifies for our CRA tax abatement policy. So what the TIF does is kind of help step that down, which makes projects a lot more financeable for banks. And so when we're looking at this project, it picks up then 15 years out. And despite the fact that working remotely means I can look this stuff up on my hard drive, I am waiting for that to come up. So I do have that, and I can pull that real quick. I just need a second.
Mr. President, I'm going to have that question on all four of the pieces of legislation. We pass a lot of TIFs in downtown and these new developments, and I'm just wondering, you know, with the prime real estate that is downtown and the hot spots around the city that the TIFs are offered in, I'm just curious as to what exactly it is. I know it's beneficial to the city to do it, to get the development done, but I was just wondering how much we give up in taxes over the term of the TIF.
Sure.
So on this one, it's the non-school share is roughly $215,000 a year once that kicks in.
So I guess, Director, if you just be ready for the questions that moves along, but if we're gonna ask that question, I'm more interested in the upside as well. Like these are, we don't just give money away. These are math equations. I'd like to know what the benefit to the city is as well. So.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Bashir Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to, this is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And congratulations to our colleague, Councilman McCormick. I just wanted just to be clear that I haven't received an email from them yet, Millennia. So Chair, to the Director, if you can just please have them email me, and so I can set up a meeting with them to discuss their properties in the ward.
Yeah, I will do that. I'll take charge of that. I know they communicated to me that they might have tried to reach out via phone, but I'll just go ahead and schedule that meeting. That way I can make sure it happens.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Councilman Joe Jones. Probably unmute, Councilman.
Mr. Chairman, to the Director, thank you, Mr. President. When we are evaluating projects that are coming in to our city, do we have any kind of like guidelines on who we will be assisting? I know that there's like guidelines for our financial institutions on what they will do. And I know you talked about our financial institutions in this deal. So what made it so that we would have to give them assistance on this particular project?
Yeah, so to kind of pull it together in a quick nutshell, when we look at projects, we look at what our economic benefits are to the city. So what we get as far as creation of whether it's new jobs or new residents or meeting our housing goals. We look at what the project's capital stack looks like. And so my staff, my team evaluates the pro forma for the project, that takes a look at the sources and uses, identifies the funding gaps, and tries to figure out how to use the resources that we have at hand to push projects over that finish line. In general, we operate under a but-for test. We try to be the last dollar in sometimes on some of these projects when you've got tax credits and other public lenders in there. It's a little bit more back and forth, but it's in general, we try to push to make sure that the number that we've identified and the tool that we're using is the right tool for the project to get it done without, giving away any more resources than we're required to.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, so you talked about the resources and tools. What are those fund systems, or could you make available to me, those systems by which you have access to sort of less make it easy transition for new developments to come into the city of Cleveland? I know that you have a number of tools. If you could tell us what those tools are in a memo, maybe, or because I know that it's going to take some time to put all that together. And then what are those balances in those accounts? And then how can we, as individual members of council, if we have projects in our communities, how we can be able to use those tools as incentives to bring new development into our communities?
I can provide some information on that, our programming.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, to the director, have you ever made available to the council what is available to the council financially for their individual respective wards?
So our mission is citywide, and so our resources are all citywide. So we don't maintain specific ward allocations within this department.
No, that wasn't the question, Mr. Chairman. The question was, have you ever made available the documentation for the various tools to the various different council members so that they may have access to be able to request for funds and their availabilities for projects in their wards?
So all of our tools are available on our website. We regularly brief on our programming and our accomplishments as part of the annual budget hearing process. And again, I'll
publicly
provide
available.
something.
It's all very publicly available.
Right. Does the public also see the balances of the accounts, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
So if you can
no.
Back
right.
to this.
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I just, I'm not trying to make this difficult. I just want to know what is available, because the east side of the city of Cleveland's been smacked pretty hard. And, we need development in our communities now. I sit here on this table and I pass off, as an elected official on a lot of stuff that goes on. And so we need assistance and help. And so I'm just trying to figure out, Mr. Chairman, to the director, what is available to elected officials throughout the city of Cleveland.
Director,
So if the director,
yes.
So if the director could make that available, I would be appreciative of that. So I'll know exactly what tools that we're working with. So I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, to the director. I appreciate all the hard work you do and putting these deals together. I know that it's a very, heavy push to keep economic development in here. So I really appreciate you and your staff and the work that you guys do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Point on these comments, Councilman Anthony Brancatelli.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to remind folks, we did circulate and had a presentation through the housing and tax abatement study around the value of abatements and TIFs and the incentives that we provide and the value of and the return that we get from providing these incentives. And we can circulate that study again so that folks can remind themselves and refresh on why we do these TIFs and why we do the tax abatement. And the value it provides. And the other point I want to make also is just the cost. And as Director Ebersol spoke, I mean, the cost of construction in Cleveland is just as high as the cost of construction in Chicago and higher than many other of our contemporary cities in Ohio. But we don't get the same return on per square foot. So it's important that we have to have some of these incentives just so we can compete when we're doing adaptive reuses of these very historic and complicated structures, and including new construction as well. So there's a whole series of issues that we can do that we provide in order for that to occur. So just to want to remind, and we can refresh folks as this goes along. And we do get updates of available balances through CCDC. We can make sure we provide those in each one of the line items that we have available as we have those CCDC meetings as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Brancatelli. And yeah, I would like to just kind of, we've been doing TIFs for a long time. None of this is new. We spent a lot of time, having the study. We had involvement of council, we had involvement of the public. We evaluated the programs, recommendations were made as part of the 10-year plan. So that's stuff we kind of should know. So I'd rather not spend our time going over the value of tax abatement and incentive programs. There'll be plenty of time to do that. Those are part of what we do. That is part of what we do to try to, in good times, try to keep businesses coming to Cleveland. But now in very difficult times, the fact that somebody's wanting to do apartments to me is encouraging. So thank you, Councilman Brancatelli. Councilman Mike Polensek. Unmute, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Casey's. I think what's important, and I support the project, it's a critical building downtown, so I support the project. But I think what's important, due to the fact that there are probably more folks watching this than ever before, because in a committee structure, when we're in a committee room, people are very limited, especially who don't have access to Channel 20. So I think it's important for not only this project, but for the future projects that come before us to explain that the schools are being made whole. That's what's critical, because in light of the fact our communities are faced with a school levy this November, and there's been a lot of concerns raised about the size of the levy. So it's important that the administration explain to the viewing public that this is not going to have an adverse financial effect upon the school system. So I want to relay my question to Director Ebersol. Is that absolutely correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and I think that's what needs to be said. That's what needs to be said to the viewing public, that the support for the Metropolitan School District, Cleveland Metropolitan School District, is not being adversely affected by the issuance of this TIF. So that's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. If there's nothing further, ordinance number 73720 stands approved. Ordinance number 73820, Council members McCormick, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Economic Development to enter into a tax increment financing agreement with Stone Lake Companies LLC or its designee to support debt service related to the project and assist with the development of housing apartment units, to provide for payments to the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and to declare certain improvements to real property to be a public purpose. Director?
Great, thank you. Again, this is the second ordinance related to a non-school TIF for this project. This will authorize the TIF agreement itself. This is an exciting piece of new construction at Lorraine Avenue, just to the east of the West Side Market. The proposed project will be a 240 unit apartment building, 4 stories, located right there, kind of where the bridge ends. A key component of the project that we've discussed further in committee is that the project also will maintain an access to an overlooking downtown from this project. It's over almost a $65 million project. The developer team is putting in almost $50 million of equity funding, primarily opportunity zone funding. It's a group out of Chicago that's developed throughout the country. And so it's their first project here in Cleveland. So we're pretty excited to be bringing in new money into the city. Again, this will have the same requirements and benefits as discussed in the previous TIF. Creation of 5 new jobs, as well as the housing units. All told, this is going to be, once the tax abatement burns off and the TIF takes effect, it'll be about $600,000, a little bit more than $600,000 for the school district. And then the non-school portion, which is the portion here, the subsidy is about $400,000 a year. So with that, we would recommend moving forward.
Thank you. And Director, I believe I know the answer to this question, but let me just be clear. This developer has agreed to our local hiring preferences, our Fannie Lewis law, and all of our goals for local participation.
Correct.
And is this a prevailing wage project?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like now to go to the Chairman of Development Planning Sustainability. This has been heard and recommended for approval. Councilman Anthony Brancatelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thoroughly reviewed. Very excited. This is a very dense development on a tight site, but in the appropriate location, it really adds an incredible amount of value to what was a very dead zone area. So look forward to this taking its next step and journey. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilman. And this falls in Ward 3. I would like to turn the floor to Councilman Kerry McCormick, the local councilperson for Ward 3.
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate you hearing this today as well. As it was noted in prior conversations, this is a non-school TIF. So not only are the schools held harmless, they actually, through these TIFs, have seen millions of dollars of increases, because as the valuation of the tax increases go forward, the school gets that portion. So it's not a, Chairman, it's not a, they stay the same, they increase significantly by millions of dollars. So these projects support the schools for sure. Chairman, this is a exciting development on a vacant stretch of property between the Ohio City and Duck Island neighborhoods in Ward 3. As Councilman Brancatelli noted, it's a DUNCE project, which is one of the objectives of transit-oriented development, to build housing around transit, which is a goal not only to support our public transportation system, but also for environmental and climate change purposes as well. The developer has also agreed with our community to provide a percentage of below market rate housing units, as well as to make public improvements to a local public green space nearby, which the entire neighborhood will be able to enjoy. So they've worked with the neighborhood, with our residents to achieve those goals. And again, this is a significant investment on a currently vacant piece of land. So Chair, too, I just wanted to note, as was brought up before, the TIFs as well, they don't come out of existing, tax revenue funds or pots at the city. It is leveraging the new investment that's going on the property. It's using that value, not an existing pot that's sitting at the city of Cleveland serving other purposes. So just wanted to make that as well. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Further questions, comments on 73820? Councilman Joe Jones. Please unmute yourself.
Mr. Chairman, how did this project come about? Was it through the Development Corporation, or did the developer just see that plot of land and just say, hey, we want to put that together? How was it solicited out?
Yeah, so, go ahead, Councilman.
No, I was just, Chair, if I may, great question from Councilman Jones. So this site was actually, it's been thrown around for probably, a long time, definitely before my time, with different ideas for different projects. The current proposal that's being put forth, it was both, I would say. The Development Corporation in this neighborhood is Tremont West Development. And they work with not only the neighborhood, but with developers on a regular basis. And then obviously, the director can speak economic development's involvement as well. But I would say it was kind of both. It was the Development Corporation, it was folks looking at the land, as well as the city's efforts. So.
Councilman?
Yeah, I would just add to that there's been several goes at this particular parcel. And there's been some land assembly in the area for over a decade, really trying to consolidate everything. And then you get a nice piece of land, and you get developers' interest. And then, as is pretty common for us, routine for us, I would say. We get that, and then people start presenting their project and thinking about how it can come together, and that's usually when they get engaged with us.
No further questions, Mr. Congratulations to my colleagues. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything further on ordinance number 73820? Hearing on ordinance number 73820 stands approved. Ordinance number 75220, council members Bashir, Jones, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Economic Development to enter into a job creation incentive program grant agreement with Cross Country Mortgage Services LLC or its designee to support the construction of their headquarters at East 21st and Superior. Director?
Thanks. And if I would, could we do 753 also? It's a
753, yeah.
companion.
Okay, let me read them together then. Ordinance number 75320, council members Bashir, Jones, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a forgivable loan agreement with Cross Country Mortgage Services LLC or its designee to provide economic development assistance to partially finance the development of their headquarters located at East 21st and Superior Avenue and associated costs necessary to redevelop the property. Director?
Great, thank you. So these are two pieces related to the location of Cross Country Mortgage from the suburbs into downtown. There's also have been working on a non-school TIF piece, which will be coming for the next few weeks as well. I went to planning commissions, working through the process on the legal descriptions and so forth. But talking about all three, this is a really exciting opportunity. Cross Country Mortgage was founded in Cleveland about 20 years ago, moved to the suburbs, has grown enormously as many of us have seen the rise of e-mortgage companies. And then, now with rates being what they are, everyone who can is refinancing. And so their growth has been pretty incredible. They employ 400 people or so at their current headquarters and are bursting at the seams. And so we've been working with them now for several years on identifying an opportunity where they could have more space to grow and where they could be back downtown, which they view as key to their talent attraction components. So they identified this location. It's at East 21st Street and Superior, which is pretty much right next to where the old police headquarters building is, that block there between Superior and Payne. Have assembled the property, purchased it, and are planning on building really a mixed use campus. So not only will they have the development of the headquarters building there, but they'll also have some retail involved and residential development as well as part of the project. All told, we're expecting between the two projects about $55 million in investment. And the two programs that we're talking about today is a $750,000 forgivable loan that will help with a lot of the historic rehab costs, some of the demolition on some of those old buildings, and a $1,150,000 job creation incentive grant, which will be dispersed over 5 years. That is a use it or lose it kind of grant, so they have to make their numbers to achieve the goals or to achieve the resources they get. It's based on a percentage of new payroll into the city. So between the two, it's a $1.9 million total cash investment. But with the payroll that they're bringing into the city, that's really rough about pays off in about a year and a half. So we're bringing in 400 jobs. We're bringing in a $40 million payroll, and frankly, they project to nearly double their jobs in 5 years and bring in another $15-20 million of additional payroll over time. So this is a big win for that area. It's really going to help strengthen, activate that area. Superior Avenue. It attracts a growing new business into the city, and we're pretty happy that we're able to make this happen. It is the prevailing wage project for the headquarters construction. It's a Chapter 187, Chapter 188 laws apply, and we'll have a workforce development agreement as well. Work with us on on bringing in new bringing in their new employees as they grow. anticipated revenue from the non-school portion of the TIF, about a little more than $150,000. All told, once everything's online, it'll be about $250,000 new money to the school district.
Thank you, Director. You answered my two questions, which would have been about local hiring preference and prevailing wage, so thank you. This has been heard. Both of these ordinances, 752 and 53, have been heard and recommended for approval by Committee on Development, Planning, and Sustainability. At this point, I'd like to ask if Chairman Anthony Brancatelli has any further questions, comments on these two ordinances.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very excited that this is moving forward. As the director pointed out, this has been in the works for quite some time, and before COVID. There was a robust discussion at the committee yesterday, one about the number of employees who are working remotely. They assured us that they are planning to bring everybody, as many people back in the office as possible, and still have that combined work remote as well. So the need for the space is still there. Moving from Brecksville to Cleveland, it's a big win for the city. The way that, and a question came up, especially around our incentives, the way that JSIP works is basically they have to have the employees for that incentive to be reimbursed to them. So it's not like we are going to be putting out a lot of money without the return. That'll happen when the employees come to this location. And the other question that I raised was also this whole issue about the state challenge around where somebody works and where their income is derived from and where they get taxed. That'll all still have to be played out. But overall, this is a great opportunity to rebuild that area. I travel down West 26th a lot. I go to the world headquarters of Harvard Title, and which is across the street in a small building. And many of the businesses are well aware of what's going on in that area, and they're excited about this coming in. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. The local council person representing this area is Councilman Bashir Jones. Councilman Jones, if you could please tell us your thoughts on ordinances 753, 752, 753, please.
Well, first I want to say thank you so much to Director Ebersol, who's been really assisting us in this process. And thank you to the mayor, man. I mean, the mayor is doing a phenomenal job in just making sure that these businesses that come into our neighborhoods feel welcomed and feel that they will have the city's support. So thank you so much to the mayor. And before any questions is asked after this, let me just say that I'm really excited about the opportunity and that it's a collective effort. You know, why would somebody want to move into, our neighborhood? The fact is that, of course, it's about location. But we have to be as council people, we have to be the biggest cheerleaders. If I would have said, I mean, obviously we know that there's some trouble in the Superior area in regards to homelessness, even some break-ins, even some crime, right? But if that is my leading conversation, who in the world would want to move or bring their multi-million-dollar business there? So it takes us as council people to be a spokesperson of what is the best of our neighborhood and the potential of our neighborhood and where we can go. So we have to be good salespeople. Luckily, this specific one, I didn't have to sell the neighborhood too much, but as a council person, it was imperative that I let them know that we welcome them. We're happy to have them. And what I loved about it most, Mr. President, is that they were excited to become good neighbors. I'm not excited just about building a building and bringing some money in, but what excited me was, I have a goal of increasing home ownership. I have a goal of making sure that people of our neighborhood has the opportunity to get into this business. So they're going to be creating internship programs. They're going to be creating hiring programs. They're going to be doing a lot, and they're going to be helping me with my home ownership of Welcome Home to Huff program. So I'm really excited about Cross Country Mortgage. I'm thankful. Director Ebersol, man, you've been a heck of a guy, man. You've been doing a great job. And thank you for your work. And thank you to the mayor. Thank you to the mayor, man, who's really we have to sell it. Right now it's a tough time in Cleveland. So businesses to move from Brecksville to come to Cleveland, it's important that we are great salespeople of our neighborhood because people already have a perspective of who they think that we are. So we have to show them the best of us and not push the worst of us, which is a very small percentage, by the way. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Much appreciated. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Chairman,
Yes. Wait, hit it again. Mute it again. There we go.
am I good now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it is a great project, and I believe, like a lot of us, that section of Superior has a tremendous amount of potential. I'm glad to hear from Bashir. It's a great neighborhood. My great grandparents lived off of Superior in the day, so I know the neighborhood, and I'm very supportive. I have a question though of the director. Is there any revenue sharing with Brecksville as a part of this project?
There's not.
There is none. That's even better yet. Because I know in some of these in the past, we've had to do revenue sharing. So to me, this is a great win for the Superior Corridor. I commend my colleague, Councilman Jones, on the project and the department. And I only hope that once they set up shop in Cleveland, that we'll really see their presence cross-country in our neighborhoods with regards to mortgages and home improvements, because we all know many of us on the east side, getting mortgages and getting home improvement loans has been a real problem. In fact, many of us contend there's been an ongoing practice of redlining in our neighborhood. So hopefully we can embark upon, through Councilman Jones, maybe a better partnership to see more financial assistance for our residents. So I think it's a great project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Joe Jones. Please unmute.
Mr. Chairman, I concur with my colleague looking at the economic package here that the director has put together, and seeing what this offers to the city of Cleveland in terms of its direct impact of 400 new employees. It certainly is an impressive project. The question I have, Mr. Chairman, to the director, do we know what this facility is going to look like?
We have some preliminary massings and renderings. It's a historic rehab, and they're getting historic tax credits. So the buildings will look predominantly the same, the way that they currently are in frontage on Superior. But I can share those. We discussed them pretty thoroughly yesterday, so I can share those as well.
I see. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, looking at here, so it's an estimated at least additional 50 employees for each year, or for the first year, they're going to add an additional 100 employees, and then 50 employees thereafter. Yes. Up to the next 5 years.
Yes.
I see. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, this total package deal out the door is approximately how much?
So between these two ordinances, it's $1.9 million in cash outlay.
And how much is being invested, Mr. Chairman, to the director from as the whole project?
It is it's about a $55 million total investment in the area.
A $55 million total investment? Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to the director, I have no further questions. I just think this is a great win for the city of Cleveland, and it's good to see the development in that corridor. And so I want to congratulate the administration for putting together a great piece, and also commend my colleague for getting a great development in his neighborhood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councilman. There's nothing further. Ordinances 752, 753 stand approved. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Moving now to Department of Finance. Good morning, Chief Director. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
I am well, thank you.
Good.
Okay, I'm going to begin with 745. Ordinance number 745-20 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing refunding and remarketing of airport systems revenue bonds authorizing supplemental indentures and other agreements related to the bonds, and authorizing and approving related matters. Chief.
So, Mr. Chair, members of council, these are what we call our refunder pieces. As this body knows, we track our portfolio and follow the market for whatever outstanding debt or notes we may have to make sure that we're getting the best rates. And at times it is advantageous for us to refund bonds at a lower rate in order that we save money on interest. So we do have some criteria, and they're the same on all four of these pieces. This one, of course, is for the airport. We have to obtain an aggregate net present value of at least 3%, which means our gain on refinancing has to be at least 3%. We get to eliminate or modify any covenants that are unduly restrictive. They may have fit one other time in the market, and now they're different in this market. And we also, of course, want to obtain a more favorable debt service structure under terms of our credit support instruments. So it's better serves our own financial ability to pay and lessens our obligation. And it's the same criteria for each set of debt. And this one, of course, is for airport. These refunders are 3 years, and the one for airport sunsets in November of this year. And so we wanted to make sure we had a piece in place.
Okay, and you said at least 3%. What are we saving on this one, Director?
This one is actually the piece that allows us to do it. It's not that we're actually doing a transaction, but as you know, we can't come back to council like immediately get that. So these are the pieces that allow us to do it. And so you set that criteria.
That's authorizing the process that you just described.
Yes.
Thank you. Questions, comments on 74520? Hearing none, ordinance number 74520 stands approved. Ordinance number 74620, Councilmember Kelly by department request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the issuance of bonds for the city for the purpose of refunding a portion of the city's currently outstanding public power system revenue bonds, authorizing hedge agreements, authorizing supplemental indentures and certain other documents related thereto, and authorizing and approving related matters. Chief?
Mr. Chair and members of council, Betsy has joined me. We're having some issues with our IT operating system. So she's in a chair in back of me. So this one, again, is the same kind of a piece. It's a refunder piece with the same criteria. It also sunsets in November of 2020, and it is for the Cleveland Public Power portfolio.
And this is the same thing. This is giving authority to refund.
That is correct. In the event that we can save 3%, restructure debt in a more favorable way, and eliminate restrictive covenants.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilman Joe Jones? Please unmute yourself.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, can you give an example of what do you mean by that as a tool to I presume this would be a tool to refinance?
Mr. Chair, to the director, yes, refinance is the word that you would use like in a commercial area, like if you're doing a house or a car. It's called refunding when you're doing large notes in a public setting. But yes, that is a good comparison.
And what are we talking about in terms of, I know you're looking at least saving at least 3%. It's 3% of what total, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
The 3% is how you measure the amount of savings that you would get by this refunder. So if your rate were X and you're able to refund at Y, that savings has to yield 3% or more for it to be advantageous to the city and authorized by the council.
So how many, I guess, because we're only dealing with the outstanding revenue bonds on this particular one, correct? Mr. Chairman, to the director.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, yes. When you're talking Cleveland Public Power and our enterprise funds, what they issue are called revenue bonds because it is dependent on their revenue. It's secured by the revenue generated in those funds.
And so what are those estimates, Mr. Chairman, to the director? What amount of money are we talking about?
So we're just giving authority to go look for a better deal. There aren't estimates at this point. We're giving the chief and the Department of Finance the authority to go find better deals.
And an example of what are we looking at, Mr. Chairman, to the chief? Do we have an idea?
All right, I'm going to try to say it quick because I know you.
As an example,
we
really
monitor a portfolio of debt for each one of our entities, including the general fund. So whatever outstanding debts and issues we have in a portfolio, and we monitor them and their performance against market conditions and opportunities for refinancing. So there's no estimate at this time. There's no deal on the table. But because we have to respond to market conditions quickly, we always get a refunder piece that stays in place for a 3-year period. And both of these that we're talking about are sunsetting. And so we need to get new pieces in place in order that we can monitor our portfolios effectively.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the director. I have some more questions, but I'll ask the director for the sake of time off the record.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, ordinance number 74620 stands approved. Ordinance number 74720, Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of revenue refunding bonds to refund outstanding revenue bonds of the core city programs for economic and community development in the city and authorizing related matters. Director?
Okay, again, this is another portfolio of core city bonds that generally we issue for neighborhood type projects. They're different than general obligations. They're different than CPP. They're different than airport. They have the same criteria. We currently have some direct placements that'll be coming due next year. And so we may be looking at either placing them directly again or refunding them into bonds or notes.
But again, this is authorizing you to go get those deals.
That is correct.
Thank you. Councilman Brancatelli?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to clarify, the original legislative summary spoke about issuing new bonds to the $2.5 million for new projects. And then a corrected legislative summary came in for 74720, saying this is just refinancing. So I just want to clarify that this is for refinancing existing bonds.
Yes, that's why we sent through the corrected thing. Yeah. The 2.5 was a reference to, if you recall, Councilman, we had about $2 million or so in our original GO bonds for the neighborhood transformation stuff. Mm-hmm. And so there was a confusion between the two. We already had authority on the 2.5. Right. This is just the refunder.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Joe Jones. Please unmute yourself.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, what will we be actually saving on this refinancing? I see it 25% on page 3, so I wasn't for sure what was that designated for.
I don't have, I don't know.
It's the last paragraph, page 3 of 747-2020.
So 747 would have been the third page.
All right, I don't actually know what you're looking at. Are you,
Is there a 25, what's it? I don't know if there's a reference to 25%. I'm not sure what you're looking at.
I don't know what
it reads, would you like for me to read it? It says by a
yes, please.
Remarketing agent or otherwise provided that the variable rate refunding bond shall not bear interest at a rate in excess of 25% per year, including the refunding bonds held by a provider of credit support instrument.
Okay, that's the standard language in refunders. That's a ceiling as to how much we could actually incur for interest. And of course, that's tremendously high, and we never hit any 25%. In this market, we're doing like 3 and 4. So that's just a precaution in the event that, someone is looking at it, they don't go higher than that number.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the director and Mr. Chairman, to the director, these bonds will be utilized for economic and community development. And I heard the chairman talk about a nominal amount of money. How much are these bonds we're talking about in terms of its value?
Okay, again, this is a permission to refund. So there are no bonds associated with it. We're looking at our current portfolio. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Councilman, say it again, please.
Yeah, I didn't hear you. I heard you say something. I didn't know if you were clarifying.
We're giving the authority.
Right.
Giving authority. We're in the number.
I got that. No further questions, Mr. Chairman, to the director.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, ordinance number 74720 stands approved. Ordinance number 74820. Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing supplemental lease purchase agreements and other agreements related to the lease purchase of the Cleveland Stadium, known as First Energy Stadium, approving the issuance of refunding certificates of participation or conversion and remarketing of variable rate certificates of participation and related supplemental trust agreements, and authorizing and approving related matters. Chief?
Okay, Mr. Chair, it is exactly the same as the other pieces, except that these are certificates of participation for the stadium. It would allow us again to do a refunder. We have a direct placement involved with the stadium that'll come due next year. And so we want to have this in place in the event that we can bring that in at a much lower rate.
Thank you. And the certificates of participation is just the name of the financial instrument that is associated with the First Energy Statement.
That is correct. That is correct.
Term of art that's different based on the financing tools.
That is correct. And that's a lease agreement. So that's why those were used.
Questions, comments on 74820? Seeing no hands, ordinance number 7, Councilman Joe Jones. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can the director explain the covenants that unduly, it says to eliminate or modify covenants that are unduly restrictive? What are those restrictions?
That's literal. That's exactly literal. If in fact we have something in the debt indenture that is a covenant and obligation of that debt, and it's unduly restrictive in this environment, meaning that it isn't applicable and we need more flexibility, when we renegotiate, we would have the ability to change that restriction.
I see. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the director.
Thank you. There's nothing further. Ordinance number 74820 stands approved. Thank you, Chief. We have a few council pieces left on our agenda. We have ordinance number 74120. Councilmember Blaine Griffin, emergency ordinance to add the name Cleveland Clinic Way as a secondary and honorary name to East 93rd Street between Chester Avenue and Euclid Avenue. Councilman Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Cleveland Clinic will be celebrating their 100th anniversary this upcoming year. And the area that we're designating is the area between Chester Avenue and Euclid, which right now is the large reflector pool where the rocks are taking place, where the rocks are located at in that reflector pool. So this ordinance will rename that street and that stretch, which Cleveland Clinic already has the Sampson Pavilion on one side and a parking complex on the other, and then their main entrance right across the street. So really, we're not taking anything away from the residential side. We're basically allowing the Cleveland Clinic to name that stretch Cleveland Clinic Way. I think it's something that we should do. I'm a big supporter of this ordinance, and I will tell you that the clinic has been a good partner, and you'll be hearing some great things in the near future about some of the collaborations that we're working on to really try to make sure that we invest and work closely with the neighborhood. So I'm asking my colleagues to support this, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And if there's questions, comments, and Chief, I made one small error. I need you to stay for just a second. We have one more to hit. Questions, comments on 74120? Hearing none, ordinance number 74120 stands approved. I missed the finance piece. I want to thank Kimberly and our staff for bringing this to my attention. Ordinance number 75720. Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Finance to enter into various written standard purchase and requirement contracts to provide paging equipment, cellular devices, data services, wireless connectivity, activation equipment, and various related products and services, and monthly fees and charges for citywide use for the Division of Information Technology and Services, Department of Finance, for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Finance. Director, Chief?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just thought you were taking them in number order. I was fine. I would have waited.
Sorry about that.
So this piece, of course, is our IT piece, and I have both Chief Phillips and Kim Roy Wilson online for it. It is what it described, but I would like them to add some comments.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is our wireless piece, our cellular piece of our services. Those mainly around our cell phones, which is obvious, but also our public safety vehicles that have modems in them for their MDTs, their mobile data terminals. That's how they communicate back and forth to the systems. And so we've got about 1,000 of those out there. as well as some laptops that have cellular service and those hotspots that we use to give people, like for instance, when they have to go home for things like this, they have these wireless hotspots. So it's definitely just cell services.
And do we still have pagers?
No, we don't have pagers, no, sir.
Yes, it said pagers. They got to. So this is a, this is a fairly broad grant of authority for technology. What is the value of this, or is this? I mean, will any of these come back to council? It's a pretty broad grant of authority.
So again, this for just the wireless piece. So it sounds broad because the pieces of technology are kind of broad, but the value is roughly about 1.1, 1.2 million. It's about 400 and let me get the exact number, about 457,000 for safety. Again, that's EMS, fire, police, all their modems, and then about another 740 for the general for cell phones and hotspots as well.
Okay, so despite the the paging equipment, devices, data services, wireless connectivity equipment, related products and services, we're really talking mostly about cellular service, about phones and devices, and wireless and cellular. Is that the heart of this ordinance?
It's really cellular because again, those modems are in the cars actually work off cellular.
Okay, so it's almost all cellular. This is a cell.
Right.
This is grant. The grant of authority is mainly for cellular services under this ordinance.
Correct. And pagers, yes.
And gotta have the pagers. And
Right.
it's about 1.1 million, did you say?
Correct, 1.1, 1.2 million, correct.
Questions, comments on ordinance 75720? Seeing no hands, ordinance number 75720 stands approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Chief. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Is Kimberly Wilson, is she on with us still? Yes, she's listening, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I have two more council matters that will be considered by the full council. They're both resolutions to be considered for adoption under suspension. Resolution 78720, council members Kelly and Zone, an emergency resolution appointing one member to the Civilian Police Review Board. Councilman Zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to my honorable colleagues, when we entered into the consent decree, we increased the membership and the number of individuals on the Civilian Police Review Board. This individual that we are recommending reappointment initially started off in the youth category. There was a provision that we had somebody on the commission who was between the age of 18 and 30. This young man is an attorney. He's been on the commission for 4 years now. His term expired, which allows him to serve month to month until the reappointment. He's been a dutiful member. He frequently attends the meeting. He's engaged. He is at the upper end of that. He is right at 30. So we are going to make sure that at some point down the road, when another vacancy appears, that we get another youth person. The exciting thing is that this Civilian Police Review Board, it's getting younger, it's getting more engaged, it's getting highly skilled and really pushing and pressing for reform. And I'd ask all my colleagues to support this reappointment.
Right, and the reappointment is of Michael Hess for the term that Councilman Zone just described. Questions, comments on resolution 78720? Seeing no hands, resolution 78720 will be considered by the full council this morning.
I have a question, Mr. President, if it's okay.
Yes, please.
This young man that we're talking about placing on the board, is it possible, Chairman Zone, that we can get some type of resume of who this gentleman is, what organizations he's been a part of? I'm not familiar with this name. Not that I know everybody, but I just like to know who this person is.
Sure, absolutely. We can send it to you later on. today, I can have our staff attorney, Rachel Negro-Scalish, send you that information.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. President, if I can make a statement just in regards to anything to do with like the civilian boards or these things, you know, sometimes many of the activists may feel that, you know, I don't want, and I'm not saying this is the situation with this person because I don't know him, but
Cutting out, Councilman.
board that's, can you hear me?
Yeah, if you'd repeat your last sentence though, please. I think you're frozen up on us, Councilman.
Okay. I want to make sure that we have people that. Oh, that's great. Can you hear me now?
Try again. Start with your last sentence. Repeating your last sentence. You froze up on us.
Okay. If it doesn't work this time, I'll just talk to you later. But what I was just saying, Mr. President, was I just want to make sure that the people who are on this civilian board are people who are connected to the act. Did you hear that?
Connected to
the activist community.
Yeah, I think I heard the question, and I'll take my shot at it. And to the extent that I heard the question, there is these availabilities. We bend over backwards to provide notice that it's open. We make sure that it's well prescribed in terms of all the different categories, and it's really we welcome anybody who wants to be associated with this, because it's hard to find people to meet all the criteria that want to do the work. But Councilman Zone, I'll punt to you and see if you have anything further on that.
Sure. I would just say for my colleagues' benefit, as part of the consent decree, we expanded the commission from 5 members to 9 members. There are requirements and carve-outs that we have 1 member from each living in each of the 5 police districts. These aren't individuals who are recommended by the police commanders or the community relations boards of those 5 police districts. There's just a requirement that they come from all 5 police districts. We also created a carve out that we had somebody from the LGBTQ plus community. We have that. We also created a carve out that we had somebody between the ages of 18 and 30. We have that. We've been very intentional to have all 9 members associated with the activist community. Is not a prerequisite, but it is something that is encouraged. We have a well-rounded board of professionals. I'm really proud of the fact that all of council's appointees since this new rule went into place were under the age of 40. So council is pushing, getting younger people on there who want to see good constitutional policing. We're in a good spot. The Civilian Police Review Board is stronger than it's ever been. And Michael Hess, again, as I said, he's an attorney. He lives in the Old Brooklyn neighborhood. He is a 2nd district representative. He's been doing a fine job. One of the problems also has been with this board is getting people to attend and be committed. His track record is very solid. This is a reappointment, and I'd ask my colleagues to support this reappointment.
Thank you. Councilman Bashir Jones, anything further?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Joe Jones. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. I just seem to keep slipping on that one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To my colleague, Mr. Zone. How many openings have we had this year for this position? Because I want to recall that there was an opening and I made a submission of some names. And so I didn't know if were there submission of names that came in, you know, further than just my person that I was thinking about. But did we get a pile of other people who wanted to be on this board, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Zone?
If I could, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To our colleague, the way this works is they're staggered terms, so they don't all expire at the same time. And when we created the recomposition, we currently had 5 members who were on the Civilian Police Review Board. So the new additional ones that we added, we staggered their terms so they don't all expire at the same time. This individual his term expired in August. So he's on like a month-to-month renewal until we either reappoint him or select a new person. What we do with all appointees is we post in this particular instance, for 45 days on our city's website. We send out a communication through our comms department. We send out an email to all members of council, encouraging people to recommend individuals. And so it doesn't, they don't all expire at the same time. Additionally, when all the resumes and letters of interest are gathered, we have a review committee that looks at those and then makes a recommendation to the council president for appointment. There are 5 that come, there are a certain amount of seats that the mayor appoints and a certain amount of seats that the council appoints.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, the question is to Mr. Zone, how many applicants applied for this position?
Well, this was a reappointment, and we posted it, and we, again, for the reasons stated previously, we are recommending reappointment. There's currently right now, we reappointed an individual whose term expires in February, and she only served 6 months and then resigned on us. That application is open right now, Councilman Jones. We received 13 applications for that one position.
Okay, so is that the one that I'm talking about where I earlier when you sent the email over and I had a request in for our area?
Yes, sir.
All right, and so this particular, what we're doing here with 787-2020 is making a reappointment of Mr. Michael Hess for a new term starting from August 8, 2022, August 8, 2024. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Zone?
Yes, sir.
And so in this particular instance here, was there applicants, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Zone, that applied for this 4-year term? Was this made available on the open space?
Yes, it was.
And did you have any applicants, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Zone?
Well, it's the collective pool of that 13. And our recommendation was to reappoint Michael Hess. Again, he's been on the commission. We're trying to get this commission younger. He was the first appointee in the new chartered commission to be in that youth category. And we want to make the committee younger. He has experience. He's been a good participant so far.
And Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Zone, can you make available those folks who are currently sitting on the board now, and who represents the 4th district, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Zone?
I don't have that through the chair to the colleague. I don't have that readily available, but we could get that to you, and we can get it to you by close of business.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Brian Mooney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, through the chairman, I'm just curious, like this board member, are they paid? And if so, how much are they compensated? Is it PRS? Just curious.
Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The current status to receive a full service credit for 2020 is $8,210, something around there. We are going to be introducing an ordinance that Councilman Casey, as the chair of the mayor's reappointment committee, myself are sponsoring, that will align all boards and commissions like Planning Commission, BZA, BBS, all of those others with a slight increase. It will change over the next 4 years. There's an escalator in each year. So we're in conversations right now with the council president and the finance director as to what the best approach is moving forward.
But what is the salary right now? That was the question.
$8,210.
Oh, it's 8,000 right now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, corrected. Okay, thank you, Councilman. Thanks for clearing that up. I did not know that. Anything further for the good of the order? The other resolution is just fixing the next date of the council meeting. So we got to have another meeting after today. So if there's nothing for the good of the order, I'm going to adjourn committee of the whole. We will start the council meeting at 11:45. Again, I recommend staying signed in. And if we could reconvene at 11:45, we'll begin the full council meeting. Thank you all very much.
Well, sure are a lot of barricades in that committee room.
Yes, they're even more than what you see.
It's like prison conjugal visits. We got a little plexiglass between everybody.
We are still live on YouTube.
Oops.
I think it's different.
Sure are a lot of barricades.
Now that was funny.
What would you know about conjugal visits at a prison, Councilman Brancatelli?
I watch TV.
All right. All right, Madam Clerk, are we at 9 yet?
No.
Not yet.
We're at 10 now.
Okay, very good. Well, let's call.
20.
I'm sorry?
20.
Okay, listen, I gotta call you back.
PB 20 on?
No.
Okay.
Ed, are you ready? Yes, we're ready.
Ready, okay. So I'm going to call to order our council meeting on Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Kelly.
Here.
Bishop. Brancatelli.
Here.
Cleveland.
Here.
Conwell. Griffin.
Here.
Hairston. Johnson.
Here.
Bashir Jones.
Here.
Joe Jones. Casey.
Present.
McCormack.
Present.
Mooney.
Here.
Palencic. Santana. Slight.
Present.
Zone.
Present.
Bill Quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. Will everybody please pause for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America.
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
This council meeting is being held during the COVID-19 emergency declaration and is being conducted as a virtual meeting in accordance with Ohio's open meeting laws as amended by Sub-House Bill 197. Council Bill 49 requiring the attendance of the mayor and directors shall be waived for this and any other virtual council meeting held under Sub-House Bill 197. In compliance with the charter and rules of council, a copy of all legislation to be heard during this council meeting was furnished previous to the meeting to every council member through their council email. It is hereby acknowledged without objection that all council members have received this legislation. Further, council members must be visibly present for all votes. If you are not present, then your vote will not be counted. Madam Clerk, please dispense with the journal.
By Councilmember Zone, that the reading of the minutes of the last meeting be dispensed with the journal approved, seconded by Councilmember Johnson.
Communications.
File number 798, 2020, oath of office for Brian Kimball, Interim Director of Cleveland Department of Public Health. File number 799, 2020, oath of office for Patrick Cusick, Interim Commissioner of Division of Environment, Cleveland Department of Public Health. File number 800, 2020, oath of office for David Hearn, Commissioner of Division of Air Quality, Cleveland Department of Public Health. File number 770 from the Division of Liquor Control. File number 775, 2020, transfer of ownership application at 4127 East 131st Street, Ward 1. File number 776, 2020, regarding a stock application at 2120 East 4th Street, Ward 3. File number 777, 2020, regarding a new license application at 15301 Kinsman Road, Ward 1. File number 778, 2020, regarding a new license application at Edwin's Bakery and Training Center, 13104 Buckeye Road, Ward 4. File number 779-2020 regarding a transfer of ownership application at 1050 West 10th Street, Ward 3. File number 801-2020 regarding a stock application at 1836 Euclid Avenue, Ward 3. File number 802-2020 regarding a stock application at 1503 Spring Road, Ward 12. File number 803-2020 regarding a stock application at 2537 Lorraine Avenue, Ward 3. File number 804-2020 regarding a transfer of ownership at 16601 Euclid Avenue, Ward 10.
Thank you. First reading emergency ordinances to be referred for administrative and committee review.
Ordinance 781-2020 by council members Brancatelli and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to amend section 6 of ordinance 176-2020 relating to applying and accepting grants from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the 2020 Federal Home Investment Partnerships Acts Program, Emergency Solutions Grant Program, and the Housing Opportunity for Persons with AIDS Program. Ordinance 782-2020 by council members Griffin and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to amend sections 241.05 and 35 of the codified ordinances relating to food shop licenses, fees, and categories. Ordinance 783-2020 by council members McCormack, Brancatelli, Johnson, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to amend sections 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7 of ordinance 330-2019 relating to granting to the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District certain easement rights and property at Clark Field needed for the sewer district's West 3rd Quigley Westerly Miscellaneous CSO Control Project. Ordinance 784-2020 by council members Johnson and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Works to enter into an amendment to the Waste Collection Packer Vehicle Rental Agreement to extend the term for an additional 4 months. Ordinance 785-2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Human Resources to apply for and accept grants from various agencies for Wellness Works Financial Wellness Program. Ordinance 786-2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Finance on behalf of Cleveland Municipal Court to apply for and accept and expend grants and gifts that become available from federal, state, or other public entities and private entities to respond to and mitigate the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, including funds to reimburse the court for costs incurred as a result of COVID-19, and authorizing Director to file and execute all agreements and documents necessary for these purposes. Ordinance 792-2020 by Council Members Casey and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more contracts with Motorola Solutions for professional services necessary to provide the update to the microwave system, proprietary equipment, and for maintenance and service of hardware and software for the Office of Radio Communications. Ordinance 793-2020 by Council Members Griffin and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Health to enter into one or more contracts with Overdose Lifeline and Preventure to provide services in connection with the This Is Not About Drugs and the opioid public health crisis programs, and authorizing the director to enter into contract with the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board to receive payments for prevention services for a period of 1 year. Ordinance 794-2020 by Council Members Cleveland and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Port Control to employ one or more appraisers or one or more firms of appraisers to provide professional services necessary to appraise real and/or personal property, rights of way and/or easements, and other interests in real property on an as-needed basis for a period of 1 year with 3 one-year options to renew, the second of which requires additional legislative authority. Ordinance 795-2020 by Council Members McCormack, Cleveland, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Port Control to employ one or more professional consultants to maintain, manage, secure, and promote city-owned properties at the North Coast Harbor and to fulfill the common area maintenance agreement with the stakeholders of North Coast Harbor for a period of 1 year with 3 one-year options to renew. Ordinance 796-2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Finance to employ one or more professional consultants, software developers, or vendors to develop, implement, and/or acquire software solutions or licenses necessary to streamline various medical billing services and cost recovery processes for the Division of Assessments and Licenses for a period of 3 years with a 1-year option to renew.
First reading emergency ordinances to be passed.
Ordinance 789-2020 by Councilmember McCormack. An emergency ordinance amending Section 2 of Ordinance 725-2020 as it pertains to authorizing the Director of the Department of Public Works to enter into an agreement with Ohio City Incorporated for the Market Square Park project through the use of Ward 3 casino revenue funds. Ordinance 790-2020 by Councilmember Bashir Jones. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into an agreement with Lexingtonville Community Center for the Safe and Sound program through the use of Ward 7 Neighborhood Equity Funds. Ordinance 791-2020 by Councilmember Bashir Jones. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of the Department of Economic Development to enter into an agreement with Style of Success for the Style of Success Salon renovation project through the use of Ward 7 casino revenue funds.
Read the motion to suspend the rules.
By Councilmember Zone, that the rules be suspended and the legislation just read be placed on final passage. Seconded by Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. Would you please call the roll?
Kelly, Bishop, Brancatelli, Cleveland, Conwell, Griffin, Hairston, Johnson, Bashir Jones, Joe Jones, Casey, McCormack, Mooney, Valencic, Santana, Slight, Zones. 16 yeas.
Please call the roll on passage.
Kelly, Bishop, Brancatelli, Cleveland, Conwell, Griffin, Hairston, Johnson, Bashir Jones, Joe Jones, Casey, McCormack, Mooney, Valencic, Santana, Slight, Zone. 15 yeas.
First reading ordinance referred for administrative review and committee review.
Ordinance 797-2020 by Councilmember Valencic. An ordinance establishing the Lakeshore Boulevard Design Review District north and south of Lakeshore Boulevard between East 143rd and East 185th Streets.
First reading resolution referred for administrative and committee review.
Resolution 780-2020 by Council Members Bashir Jones, Cleveland, McCormack, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency resolution approving the continuation of the Cleveland Superior Arts Improvement District as a special improvement district in the city, accepting petitions from the owners of property in the district, approving a new plan for public services, declaring it necessary to provide safety, cleaning, and other services for the district, and providing the assessment of the cost of such work upon benefited property in the district and declaring an emergency.
First reading emergency resolutions to be adopted.
Resolution 787-2020 by Council Members Kelly and Zone. An emergency resolution appointing one member to the Civilian Police Review Board. Resolution 788-2020 by Councilmember Kelly. an emergency resolution fixing the date of the next regular meeting of council. Resolution 805-2020 by Councilmember Joe Jones, an emergency resolution objecting to a D1, D3, D3A liquor permit at 15301 Kinsman Road.
Read the motion to suspend the rules.
By Councilmember Zone, that the rules be suspended and the legislation just read be placed on final passage, seconded by Councilmember Johnson.
Please call the roll.
Kelly, Bishop, Brancatelli, Cleveland, Conwell, Griffin, Hairston, Johnson, Bashir Jones, Joe Jones, Casey, McCormack, Mooney, Polensek, Santana, Slight, Zone. 16 yeas.
Please call the roll on adoption.
Kelly, Bishop, Brancatelli, Cleveland, Conwell, Griffin, Hairston, Johnson, Bashir Jones, Joe Jones, Casey, McCormack, Mooney, Polensek, Santana, Slight, Zone. 16 yeas.
Thank you. Second reading emergency ordinances to be passed.
Ordinance 730-2020 by Council Members Griffin and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Health to enter into one or more contracts without competitive bidding with the Center for Disease Detection for the purchase of lab services clinics that are needed under the Title 10 grant for the Division of Health, Department of Public Health for a period of approximately 6 months. Ordinance 737-2020 by Council Members McCormack, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a tax increment financing agreement with 75 Public Square or its designee to support debt service related to the project and assist with the development of new market rate apartments, a restaurant and retail space, to provide for payments to the Cleveland Metropolitan School District and to declare certain improvements to real property to be of a public purpose. Ordinance 738-2020 by Council Members McCormack, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a tax increment financing agreement with Stonelay Companies or its designee to support debt services related to the project and assist with the development of housing apartment units, to provide for payments to the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and to declare certain improvements to real property to be a public purpose. Ordinance 741-2020 by Councilmember Griffin, an emergency ordinance to add the name Cleveland Clinic Way as a secondary and honorary name to East 93rd Street between Chester and Euclid Avenues. Ordinance 745-2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing refunding and remarketing of airport system revenue bonds, authorizing supplemental indentures and other agreements related to the bonds, and authorizing and improving related matters. Ordinance 746-2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the issuance of bonds by the city for the purpose of refunding a portion of the city's currently outstanding public power system revenue bonds, authorizing hedge agreements, authorizing supplemental indentures and certain other documents related thereto, and authorizing and approving related matters. Ordinance 747-2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the issuance of sale of revenue refunding bonds to refund outstanding revenue bonds of the Core City Program for Economic and Community Development in the city and authorizing related matters. Ordinance 748-2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing supplemental lease purchase agreements and other agreements relating to the lease purchase of the Cleveland Stadium known as First Energy Stadium, approving the issuance of refunding certificates of participation or conversion, and remarketing of variable rate certificates of participation and related supplemental trust agreements, and authorizing and improving related matters. Ordinance 752-2020 by Council Members Bashir Jones, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a job creation incentive program grant agreement with Cross Country Mortgage Services or its designee to support the construction of their headquarters at East 21st and Superior Avenue. Ordinance 753, 2020 by council members Bashir, Jones, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a forgivable loan agreement with Cross Country Mortgage Services or its designee to provide economic development assistance to partially finance the development of their headquarters located at East 21st and Superior and other associated costs necessary to redevelop the property. Ordinance 756, 2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Human Resources to employ one or more consultants or firms of consultants to provide professional services necessary to analyze healthcare providers' benefits and claims, and to evaluate proposals received for benefit management services for a period of 1 year, with 2 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director of Human Resources. Ordinance 757, 2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to enter into various written standard purchase and requirement contracts to provide paging equipment, cellular devices, data services, wireless connectivity, activation equipment, and various related products and services, and monthly fees and charges for citywide use for the Division of Information Technology and Services, Department of Finance, for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Finance. Ordinance 758, 2020 by Council Members Zone and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to renew a lease agreement with Cuyahoga County for the lease of certain space located on various floors of the Justice Center for a term of 1 year beginning October 2nd, 2020.
Read the motion to suspend the rules.
By Councilmember Zone, that the rules be suspended and the legislation just read be placed on final passage. Seconded by Councilmember Johnson.
Please call the roll.
Kelly, Bishop, Brancatelli, Cleveland, Conwell, Griffin, Hairston, Johnson, Bashir Jones, Joe Jones, Casey, McCormack, Mooney, Palencic, Santana, Slight, Zone. 16 yeas.
Please call the roll on passage.
Kelly, Bishop, Brancatelli, Cleveland, Conwell, Griffin, Hairston, Johnson, Bashir Jones, Joe Jones, Casey, McCormack, Mooney, Palencic, Santana, Slight, Zone. On ordinance 758, 2020, 15 yeas, 1 nay. On all others, 16 yeas.
Thank you. Second reading ordinances to be passed.
Ordinance 703, 2020 by Councilmember McCormack, an ordinance changing the use, area, and height districts of a parcel of land east of Scranton Road and south of Kenilworth Avenue and adding an urban form overlay district. Ordinance 704, 2020 by Councilmember McCormack, an ordinance changing the use, area, and height districts of a parcel of land on the northwest side of Literary Road at the intersection of West 10th Street, known as permanent parcel 004-12-091, and by adding an urban form overlay along the Literary Road frontage. Ordinance 760, 2020 by Councilmember Brancatelli, an ordinance changing the use, area, and height districts of parcels of land north and south of Harvard Avenue between 55th Street and the western property line of 6900 Harvard Avenue. Ordinance 761, 2020 by Councilmember Slight, an ordinance changing the use, area, and height districts of parcels of land west of Rocky River Drive between Dartmouth Avenue and Usufruct Avenue.
Read the motion to suspend the rules.
By Councilmember Zone, that the rules be suspended and the legislation just read be placed on final passage. Seconded by Councilmember Johnson.
Please call the roll.
Kelly, Bishop, Brancatelli, Cleveland, Conwell, Griffin, Hairston, Johnson, Bashir Jones, Joe Jones, Casey, McCormack, Mooney, Colensik, Santana, Slight, Zone. 16 yeas.
Please call the roll on adoption.
Kelly, Bishop, Brancatelli, Cleveland, Conwell, Griffin, Hairston, Johnson, Bashir Jones, Joe Jones, Casey, McCormack, Mooney, Colensik, Santana, Slight, Zone. 16 yeas.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This will conclude our legislative agenda. Madam Clerk, will you please excuse the absence?
By Councilmember Zone, that the absence of Councilmember Bishop is hereby excused, seconded by Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. This council is adjourned to the call of the chair. Our next regular meeting of the council will be held on Wednesday, October 21st, 2020, with the same format, committee of the whole, followed by the council meeting. Thank you all very much. Hope everybody is healthy and safe, as well as your family and your loved ones. Thank you.